Chapter 4, A Gang is Born. Borrowing the name and idea from California convicts, Stretch Hillier and Red Dog Howard founded the Aryan Brotherhood within Arizona State Prison. Though others might claim the honor of being the group's originators, no one doubts the role these two played as prime catalysts in the toxic brew that loosened the gang's scourge in the prison walls. I first met Red Dog when venturing inside the prison to interview potential witnesses during the defense of the Waylon Small case. Red Dog was charged, along with my client, Richard Compton, with being one of the Aryan Brotherhood officers who had ordered Small's murder. Why I interviewed Red Dog or what he said, I don't recall. That I still vividly recall his persona from that day testifies to his uniqueness. Though at the time he was shackled hand and foot, escorted by 3 guards, indicted for murder, and facing the death penalty, being held along with his Aryan Brotherhood confederates in Cell Block's 4 lockdown, Red Dog acted as if he had the world by the balls. More significant, even the prison guards acted as if maybe Red Dog was powerful. They acted deferential and oddly respectful towards him. They laughed at his jokes, enjoyed his hijinks, and played along with his horseplay antics. Guards and prisoners alike used Red Dog's nickname and knew how he had acquired it. Over time, Howard's moniker and its genesis and his outlandishly low prison number, which signified exactly how very long ago he first went to prison, indelibly defined his status as an institutional legend. In 1997, after his conversion to Christianity, Red Dog and I began an extensive correspondence, and I learned how he had earned his nickname in 1969. His story, now 4 decades old, remains a classic among Arizona State Prison institutional lore. "Pass the hooch to me," Howard hollered to his drinking buddies, Butch and Ray, as the threesome, ostensibly at work at their jobs in the maintenance department, became increasingly more intoxicated on a homebrew prison concoction. Any position within the maintenance department was an institutional plum, a sweet job, affording, as it did, access to a full shop of tools, widgets, tubes, pumps, tape, electrical outlets, grinders, screwdrivers, hammers, and ever-precious garbage that could be sifted through for special tidbits and odds and ends, all under the minimal supervision granted to prisoners who performed the work of running day-to-day operations. With their basic needs of food and shelter supplied by the state, idle convicts naturally and inevitably turned to smuggling contraband intoxicants inside the prison walls to ease the passage of time. They hoard fruit from lunch sacks and garbage bins, squeezing the juice into pilfered plastic bags until 15 cups, sufficient for a batch, are secreted. Flavor and fermentation are enhanced with sugar, lemon drops, and Kool-Aid. Bread dough provides the yeast. So much creative enterprise to blot out feeling, to dull consciousness, to self-medicate, to feed the serpent of addiction. When Red Dog earned his nickname, he was well stewed on prison brew, as were Butch and Ray. The drunken trio engaged in an idle conversation about petty items pilfered and set aside. "Hey Red, how much do you want for the TV antenna?" Butch asked Howard, whose nickname derived, at that point, only from the color of his hair. "I already sold it to Abe for 2 cartons of smokes," Howard replied. "I'll give you 20 for it," Butch slurred, offering 5 more packs than Abe. "Butch, what did I just say?" Howard sneered back, a sarcastic edge to his voice. "He sold it, bro." Butch wouldn't let it go. "Why would you prefer to sell a greaser something for less than what a peckerwood like me wants to give you?" "Butch, I gave my word to Abe when I made the deal, so that's it. I won't sell to you no matter what you offer," Howard snapped at the stronger, larger weightlifter. Hoping the heated exchange would escalate into an entertaining fight, Ray kicked back and clasped his hands behind his head. "Look here, Red, I need this antenna bad. So here's what I'm going to do," Butch finally declared. "I'm going to take it and pay you, store day, what I said I would pay you. You can tell that greaser anything you want, but he's not getting this antenna." As Butch reached for the antenna, Howard grabbed his arm. "Okay, Red, if that's how you want it," Butch screamed as he came around the bench between them and pushed Howard into the wall, seizing him into a bear hug and pinning Howard's arms to his side, squeezing the breath out of his chest with all his might. Nose to nose, the 2 men turned red. Howard, unable to break Butch's hold, was about to pass out. He twisted his neck forward and viciously bit Butch's left ear, tearing half the cartilage away. Blood gushed and Butch let go of Howard to grab his tattered ear. The top half was missing and it took 8 stitches to close, but Butch didn't snitch. Howard received no prison discipline for the incident. When the two saw each other the next day, Butch admitted he was wrong. They shook hands and remained friends, and Howard earned the moniker Red Dog. Such a nickname bestowed honor within prison walls. Howard's rabid wild dog tendencies made him a man to be feared, admired, and respected. Howard was released in 1969 but returned to prison with serious time to do in 1975, again for too many armed robberies. Howard's extracurricular activities in prison stacked more time into his original sentence, so this stint stretched out to 18 years, with each escapade adding to his institutional legend. A man's reputation isn't built in a day, nor upon one incident. Red Dog's was earned over 23 years, including receiving multiple convictions for armed robbery, stabbing Flash in 1965, fighting 4 ninjas alone rather than pay protection in his gladiator school days, biting Butch's ear in 1969, attempting to escape in 1971, running lucrative protection rackets and hustles, turning corruptible guards into prison mules, forming and leading the Aryan Brotherhood, ordering Small's execution as lieutenant in the Brotherhood, and surviving a reprisal shotgun attack in 1980 between feuding factions within the Brotherhood. No prisoner would deny that Red Dog had earned a reputation as one of the hardest and toughest convicts at Arizona State Prison. With the thin 6'7" frame, Jerry Joe Stretch Hilliard looked like he'd survived the rack. His most valuable asset was his reputation for violence, earned by deeds, not words. In June 1977, Stretch paralyzed this reputation into the generalship of the Aryan Brotherhood. Stretch cemented his institutional reputation on June 7, 1975 by shooting Larry Fassler. The very day of his release from isolation, Stretch walked up to the milk dispenser during the evening meal. In full view of all the inmates and guards inside the chow hall, he pulled a pistol supplied by the Padilla brothers and shot Fassler 6 times. Fassler, in prison for drug smuggling, was reputedly running his own operation from inside the walls. He owed Hilliard $10,000 from a drug debt and an IRS fraud. At least, that was one yarn, but not a very believable one. Another highly believable story amounted to simple jealousy over Fassler's sweet scam. Any convict receiving regular government checks, veterans benefits being the prime example, could arrange check cashing services and credit with Mr. Fassler, the prisoner's banker. The vet would have his government check sent to Fassler's street connections. Funds would be forwarded to Fassler, who could smuggle into prison green money, the most highly desirable contraband of all, carried into prison by a guard acting as his mule. For his services, Fassler charged 20%. Convicts accepted this extortionate rate of exchange because drugs, supplied primarily by the guards earning 100% for their services, sold for twice their street value inside the walls. So by prison logic, green money was worth twice his face value. Besides his 20% skim, Fassler made fast money on loans. Knowing his clients were good for the money, Fassler would extend loans against funds to be received at rates that would make the bankers green with envy. A $10 loan had to be repaid in 7 days for $15, with a $1 per day late charge for every day extra. The main yard gangsters, Stretch, Big Head Red, Taxi Cab, the Padillas, Jim Black, and Big Dave, got frustrated with Fassler's entrepreneurial activities because they could never figure out how to burn or rob him, and he would never loan them large sums of money, just the usual $10 now, $15 in 7 days. So Stretch volunteered to shoot Fassler to get his annoying presence permanently out of sight, out of mind. Stretch botched the job in a sense. Fassler survived 6 bullet wounds, losing 1 eye, but Stretch did as much damage to Fassler as he could and still escaped punishment. If he had killed Fassler, he would have risked a death sentence, but to maim him, he risked nothing. When charges were filed against Stretch for shooting Fassler, the Pinal County attorney gave Hilliard a plea bargain that did nothing more than close a file and clear paper. There was no more to be done. Stretch's sentence already exceeded his life expectancy by several decades. Particularly memorable lore passed along from the old timers to the fish, prison slang for newly arrived inmates. survives for decades to create the enduring reputation of the institution and its hardcore convicts. To this day, the institutional status of Stretch and Red Dog is preserved in Arizona State Prison's culture and oral history. Red Dog was released from Arizona State Prison after his second stint in April of 1975. During his 6 months on the street, he shot heroin daily, drank heavily, and robbed to pay his debts. His suppliers extended credit, so when he went back to prison on 2 armed robbery convictions with a sentence of 15 to 30 years, he still owed the Sanchez brothers $100. The Sanchez brothers on the streets, Eddie and Johnny, told their brothers in prison, Robert and Mike, to collect the debt. Freshly back on the yard and having no money on the books yet, Red Dog was approached with a favor to straighten out the debt. "Just let me know what you need," Red Dog told the messenger, wanting the debt cleared as quickly as possible, given the violent reputation of the Sanchez brothers. A certain person was making business difficult. Would Red Dog hit him? Okay, he agreed, but I need a weapon. "I'll be back later," the messenger agreed. He returned shortly with a large surgical scalpel. "We don't have a shank, so this will have to do." "Who's the snitch?" Red Dog asked. "Sean Jones." "Okay, but tell Mike and Robert to send me 2 papers of stuff to get my mind right before I do it, okay?" When the messenger returned with the dope, Red Dog asked, "Who snitches he? Captain Jimenez?" Days passed. Red Dog shot the dope. He never caught Sean in the right circumstances, so throwing all caution to the winds, he approached Jones in the chow hall in front of guards and inmates galore. Red Dog sat beside Jones, striking up an amiable conversation. "How's it going, Sean?" "Okay, dog," Sean answered, suspecting nothing. Without warning, Red Dog grabbed him by the shirt collar, drove him into the wall, pulled the scalpel from his back pocket, and slashed Sean's neck repeatedly. Dropping his victim, considering the job done, Red Dog turned to see inmates flee out the doors of the chow hall. A guard yelled, "Drop that knife," as he slid it across the floor, offering no resistance. Quickly and easily handcuffing a now passive Red Dog, the guard hustled him to the yard office as other guards swarmed to the scene with a stretcher for the wounded man. In less than 30 minutes, Warden Harold Caldwell arrived to question Red Dog, who wondered none too seriously about the fate of his victim. "Well, you really did it this time, Red Dog," the warden began. Red Dog sat in complete silence, forcing the warden to continue his haranguing monologue. "We knew Sean had a contract out on him from the streets, dog, for killing that young couple out in the desert. There are people wanting him dead. They say he should have gotten the gas chamber and not 2 life sentences. Warden, I don't know nothing about that, except he's a rat," Red Dog allowed. "He ratted on me while I was out on the streets. He set a trap for me by sending me to buy dope from cops." Red Dog offered a plausible lie to cover up the reason for the hit in order to avoid snitching on the Sanchez brothers. "Dog, that don't add up," Caldwell reasoned. "You don't have any dope charges on your record, and you weren't back in prison 2 weeks, and you tried to kill Jones in the chow hall. So I'm going to treat this like a contract hit from the streets." "Lock the asshole up," Caldwell barked, sending Red Dog to lock up in the basement of CB4 to await trial on an attempted murder charge. The warden might as well have thrown a birthday party for Red Dog. He knew everyone else locked down in the basement: Stretch, Frank, Troy Killinger, Marvin, Boots, Shitty Leg Red, Big Head Red, Freight Train Red. "It looks like old home week," Red Dog told Stretch as he walked by his cell and on his way to his own, escorted by a guard, shackled hands and feet. "Yeah, and it gets better all the time," Stretch agreed as he stuck his long arm out of his cell and extended a lit Camel for Red Dog. The guard slapped it out of Stretch's hand, provoking a string of profanity, but the guard didn't flinch. The tirade was so familiar, so predictable, so ineffectual. Red Dog's house became the last cell on the back of CB4. The hollering back and forth lasted all night as the convicts caught up on the news and gossip from the yard. "How much time you get for shooting that fat Jew?" Red Dog asked Stretch. 15 to 5, imagine that," Stretch laughed along with the others. What difference did another sentence make to Stretch? He was already serving life without the possibility of parole. Red Dog got called out for interviews with street police who believed Red Dog had been paid by someone on the streets to hit Jones. Red Dog stuck to his story. With the 30-year sentence hanging over him already, he never expected to see the streets again, so why sweat the small shit? Robert Sanchez got word to Red Dog he wanted to be Red Dog's jailhouse lawyer for his prison disciplinary case a clever ruse to allow the two to talk together confidentially, which worked in a matter of days. From Sanchez, Red Dog learned that everyone in prison, including Sean Jones, thought the hit was a contract job from the outside. The Sanchez brothers were satisfied. "Dog, you did a good job. My bosses on the street are satisfied," Robert told Dog during their meeting. "You are all paid up and your credit is still good. If I don't hurry up and get out of here, I won't need no credit," Red Dog laughed. Sanchez accurately told Red Dog what to expect from the courts, both in prison and outside versions. "You'll get solitary for 30 days and 6 months in the adjustment center down in CB4 basement from the disciplinary court," Sanchez predicted. "What about downtown? Not that it matters a whole lot, but I'd like to know," Red Dog asked. "Most of the dudes with a lot of time like you, they will usually give concurrent time. In other words, another sentence, but it runs at the same time as your other sentence. Just clean up the paperwork," Sanchez told Red Dog. "Well, that's not bad," Red Dog conceded. Sanchez got it right. Red Dog copped to an assault with intent to commit murder and received a sentence of 15 to 25 years concurrent with his 2 armed robbery convictions. During their time in the basement, the boys made plans and sealed their pact to run the prison themselves once their disciplinary confinements ended and they returned to the yard. CB4's basement lockdown became the incubator for the Aryan Brotherhood, which would be a stumbling block to the rugheads and greasers. White prisoners would now take care of their race instead of getting bulldogged and pushed around. If there was any jacking up to do, then they do it. The Mau Maus, the Mexican Mafia, Native Brotherhood, and now the Aryan Brotherhood had jailed into large groups, ostensibly for self-protection along with racial lines. Only the old-timers with notorious reputations would need to join groups for self-protection. Out of detention, Stretch, Red Dog, Troy, Frank, and Marvin agreed to recruit good white dudes with a lot of time to do. No child molesters, no Jews. Only upstanding convicts, murderers, and armed robbers. When 25 or 30 recruits agreed, everyone would swear allegiance and wear the Aryan Brotherhood AB tattoo verifying their allegiance. Kool-Aid Smith became the first victim of a racial reprisal carried out by the Aryan Brotherhood. As prison gossip described the news, a ninja got shitty with a couple of our brothers on the truck, so the next day, Little Red and Little Richie stuck Kool-Aid. A brother had access through the yard office to prison records, so the Aryan Brotherhood quickly learned that another ninja intended to testify against Little Red and Little Richie over the Kool-Aid Smith attack. His name was Wayman Small. From his CB4 lockdown isolation in November 1977, General Stretch Hilliard would be ordering the killing of Wayman Small. After Small's death, a new chapter began in the history of Arizona's prisons and politics.